Hello viewers. In previous lecture we have discussed the basics of operating system storage structures. In this lecture we will understand the IO structure in the basics of operating system. Storage is only one of many types of IO devices within a computer. A large portion of operating system code is dedicated to managing IO devices, both because of its importance to the reliability and the performance of the system. So, for the performance of the system and the reliability of the system, we dedicate a large portion of code for managing the IO devices, right, because of the reliability and the performance of the system and the varying nature of the devices. A general purpose computer system consisting of CPUs and multiple device controller that are connected through a common bus, which is called system bus. We have already discussed in the second lecture of basics of operating system. So each device controller is in charge of a specific type of device. So there is a device controller who maintains the local buffer storage, also a set of special purpose registers. So every device controller who maintains the local buffer as well as a set of special purpose registers, which we have already discussed in the second lecture. Let me show you that what we have discussed in the second lecture. So in the basics of operating system, during the computer system operations, as we discussed that a system bus, through this system bus all the controllers are connected, whether it is disk controller, USB controller, graphic adapter controller, memory controller, all the controllers who controls their devices and the data and the functionalities of the devices through the system bus. The CPU is also connected with the system bus. So this is how the device controller who maintains the local buffer as well as a set of special purpose registers, right, set of special purpose registers. Now as far as this device is concerned, device controller, as I said, maintains the local and the special purpose registers. Typically these operating systems have a device driver for each device controller. Means operating system have a device driver. So the new term device driver. What is mean by device driver? To control the device, we have the device driver. So that device driver is the software to control the device. So device controller is responsible for moving the data between the peripheral devices, that is controls and its local buffer storage. And operating system have device driver for each device controller. Means for every device, whether it is IO device, as we seen in this example, right? So every USB controller, disk controller, graphic adapter controller, memory controller, every controller is having a device driver. So that is the meaning of each device controller, right? So operating system have a device driver for each device controller, right? So what operation it does? The device driver understands the device controller, right? The device driver understands the device controller and it interface the device to the rest of the operating system. Means the device controller in turn examines the content of these registers to determine what action to take, right? And the controller start the transfer of the data from the device to its local buffer. Once the transfer of the data is completed, the device controller informs the device driver. So device driver. So we will understand this how this all device driver, device controller, how it transfers the data from the device to its local buffer and all. Okay. So here every controller is having device driver. So device driver that understands the device controller. Okay. So now let's have a working an I/O operation. To start an I/O operation, the device driver loads the appropriate registers with the device controller. As I said, when you start an I/O operation, the device driver which loads the appropriate registers required to perform this I/O operation within the device controller, so that this device controller can provide appropriate register for performing the I/O operations. The device controller in turn examines the content of these registers, right? These registers to determine what action to take. Means the device controller examines the content of these registers which are allocated to the I/O operation purpose to determine what action to take. And the third point is the controller starts transfer the data from the device to its local buffer. So as seen in this diagram, this is the data which is transferred to the local buffer. Okay. When I/O request comes, the device controller, right, assigns or examines the registers to determine what action to take, and the controller start transfer the data from the device to its local buffer. So this is transferred from device to local buffer. Once the transfer of the data is completed, right, the device controller informs the device driver via interrupt. Means when we send the I/O request, so I/O request is coming and the data is transferred. Thereafter the instruction execution cycle take place and the data movement take place from the memory to the CPU. The instructions and data are stored in the memory, and all the instructions and the data movement take place between the memory to the local buffer once the device sends the request or the device sends the data to the local buffer. Okay. So once the transfer of the data is completed, means this data is completed, the device controller informs the device driver via the interrupt that it has finished its operation. Means with this interrupt, the device driver, right, the device driver informs the device controller. The device controller informs the device driver via interrupt that the data loading is completed. Thereafter the device driver then returns the control to the operating system, right. So this is how this working an I/O operation take place. Now there is a disadvantage with this. This form of interrupt driver I/O is fine for moving a small amount of data. So small amount of data movement is applicable, and it is fine for moving a small amount of data. But what happens when you have the larger data? It produces the high overhead when used for bulk data movement. Bulk data movement means if you have large amount of data, so there is a disadvantage with this. What happens? All the 3 points, above 3 points are okay, right? But when it comes for the large amount of data, it produces the high overhead, right? High overhead. So for this disadvantage, to solve this is the problem what we have. High overheads are produced when you have the bulk amount of data movements. So to solve this problem, direct memory access is used. So we have DMA, direct memory access, right? Direct memory access. So what this direct memory access does, see, after setting up buffer, right? So after setting up buffers, pointers and counters, right? After setting up buffers, pointers and counter for IO device, the device controller transfer an entire block of data directly to or from its buffer storage to memory with no intervention by the CPU. Means by sending the data from here to here, taking the movement, what we are doing with the DMA, right? After setting up all the buffer, pointer and counter for the IO device, the device controller transfers the entire block of data directly to or from its buffer storage to memory with no intervention by the CPU. Only one interrupt is generated per block. So only one interrupt is generated for transferring the entire amount of data to tell the device driver that the operation has completed, right? Operation has completed. So while the device controller performing these operations, the CPU is available to accomplish other work. Means while transferring this data via DMA, the CPU is able to handle the other processes. It can execute the other processes. CPU is available to accomplish other work. So this is how this working and IO operation take place. So if there are high amount of overheads are produced, we have solution for this, and DMA is the solution, direct memory access. Via direct memory access, we can tell the device driver that the operation has completed, and we can generate only one interrupt per block. While the device controller performing this operation, the CPU can available for accomplishing the other work or task. So this is all about the IO structure of operating system. Hope you understood. So thank you for watching.